I actually told that story on Horace yesterday. I had money. I didn't have my billfold, though, and you can't buy a Sudafed without 9 forms of ID. And he and a deacon in Brownwood who supposedly loved me, neither one of them went in there and bought me any medicine. But he did come back after I got to whining about this in public later. He said, the Bible says, ask, and ye shall receive. That's probably how Horace told him the story. But, brethren, man, what great singing tonight. And that last song we just sang, who wouldn't want to go to heaven? I mean, you stop and think about all the mess we deal with and all just the human problems that we have to struggle with. Doesn't it give you some joy and contentment and something to look forward to when it comes to heaven? Some of y'all, I guess, are Aggie football fans. It's going to be okay. You're going to win some games again. The sun's going to shine again down here at Kyle Field. It's going to be all right. You know, don't get despondent. That's a maybe. But heaven is a yes, okay? We have a promise of that. And that is coming for us. But the only reason that a Christian wouldn't go to heaven is if we get tripped up before we get there. And I dare say the world gets trapped too. That passage that we just had read a moment ago, Paul says, I'm writing these things and trying to warn you about the snares of the devil. Out there where I live, we raise quite a bit of small stock. You got cows, but it's kind of hard to raise a whole lot of cows with not much grass, not much water. So we've got goats and sheep. And that is a smorgasbord for coyotes, foxes, bobcats, and occasional mountain lions out there. They just slaughterhouse our animals. So I take great joy and pride, and I got some pictures of my youngest son and his mama, and they snared a whole bunch of coyotes one way. They got 7 or 8 one winter. And what a snare is a piece of cable about this long with a hoop in it, and you go and you look under your fence, you see where they've been crossing. And you put that snare where that trail is, you tie it off to a T-post with some baling wire, and that coyote or fox or bobcat will come along their trail, and when they go through that, their head goes through it, maybe their shoulder, but you'll snag them somewhere between neck and hips, and you'll get them caught. And I like finding them dead already. I think my boy liked finding them alive. He could shoot them. But nonetheless, we killed a lot of coyotes. They never see the trap. There was a monkey that they chased over in Africa. The way they trapped them, I understand, is they would get either a board or a log, and they'll cut a hole in that log or in that board, and they'll put the nut or the fruit in there that the monkey wants, and that monkey can take his hand and reach right in there and grab that nut. But as a fist, he can't pull it out. And he will sit there and squeal and holler and scream as the zoo men come and catch him and put him in a sack because he won't turn loose the nut. He can get away, but he's trapped. The Arctic wolf, they take a knife, 3-edged knife actually, just almost like a triangle, and they will congeal blood on it in the freezer. Get that knife good and frozen with congealed blood. And you take it out into the ice pack, and you put it out there with the blade sticking up into the ground, into the ice. That wolf will come, they'll smell that blood, and they just get into a frenzy. They come up there and begin to just lick and lick and lick on that knife, that bloody popsicle. But what happens as they get the knife, the blood licked off, the blade shreds, it slices into ribbons their tongue, and they will bleed to death out their own mouth and never know they've even cut themselves because of the cold temperature as they're licking on this until they die. Used to fish a whole lot when I lived in East Texas, and we had water, and you'd go out there to get after those bass, and I'd go buy me a lure, and it would have a skirt, real colorful skirt on it. And I'd like to get those that have, some of them have a rattle, kind of makes a noise. You know what I'm talking about? The ones that have a rattle on them. And they'll have spinners. You can get gold spinners or silver spinners. And you can get you what's called a propeller type spinner that will really, it'll really agitate that water. And I had some spray. I would spray on that thing, some stink pretty, something that's supposed to smell good to fish. My mama hated it, but it's supposed to smell good to fish. And when you throw it out there in front of that big old bass, bloop. You know what it does when you start reeling? It sees the skirt. It sees the shine off that spinner. It feels the vibration off that propeller. It hears the noise of that rattle. It looks good. It smells that spray. It looks good, and it smells good, and it sounds good, and whoom, they hit it. And that fish sees everything except the hook. And to quote Jason, he has one on the hook and the cook. They don't see the hook. They get the hook, and then they get the cook. That's how the devil does us. He is a master angler. Now get this in your mind. I'm not going to preach on the devil tonight. But the devil is not omniscient. He is in no way God. He is not a little God. He is not stronger than you. The book of James is very clear. You resist the devil, he'll flee from you. You are stronger than the devil. Some folks almost preach this like somehow he's like a demigod. He's like a smaller version of God, and he can just whoop up on you and destroy you and take you to hell. That's not true. You don't go to hell unless you want to go. I'll say that again. We choose our destiny. How many times in the Bible is that phraseology there? Choose ye this day whom you will serve. Choose life. Why would you die? Those kind of phrases all the way through the Bible. But I've got to be conscious I can't accidentally go to heaven. I've got to pay attention. And our brother Paul here is saying the devil is trying to trap us. And while he's not omniscient, he has been fishing in the population of men for a long time. He knows what appeals. He knows what appeals to young people. He knows what appeals to middle-aged people. He knows what appeals to old people. And we've all got our spots. You know, you hear preachers sometime against, beware of youthful lust. Well, you better be aware of old people problems too. I get kind of tired sometimes hearing old folks grab about young folks. Every now and then you hear somebody say, I'll tell you one thing, these here kids to be careful. They're all running through the aisle. They're going to dead leg somebody and knock somebody down. That's true, by the way. Control your kids. But why is it the other side true also? These old folks got the walkers out kind of slow walking, getting in the way. It's true, isn't it? How about young folks appreciate, respect older people and be careful around them? And older folks be thankful of the young ones that we have and be appreciative and be accommodating there as well. I was at the congregation the other day and they were bemoaning they were getting a little bit old. Well, we're getting old, Michael. And I said, yeah, amen, that's great. I said, what do you mean? I said, if y'all are 85%, 80 years old, you're about to put a whole bunch of them on the other side. Our business to get folks to heaven, isn't it? Now, young folks, listen to this. If all of y'all were in your 80s, I'd say we probably have a 90% chance of getting all y'all to heaven. Unless you just spin off here at the very end. But all you youngins, there's many, many decades of temptation coming yet. You're going to have to stay focused for quite a while. I know what they mean. You always appreciate youth and the future and so forth. But our job is to get folks to heaven. And the natural process is youth, middle age, old, then paradise, right? That's how it works. So if you have older folks in the congregation, that's good. It's all about perspective and how we see these things. But beware of these traps that are out there. In 1 Timothy 3 and verse 7, when it talks about elders, they're supposed to be of good report, lest they fall into a snare of the devil. I don't know if any more harm can be done to the church than by a congregation that has bad elders. I have been very, very blessed. I was talking to somebody just last week. I walked into Bangs, Texas, 25 years of age, and into the best eldership I've ever known. Best circumstance a young preacher and his wife could ever have. We've been almost 30 years. And I tell folks it's a testimony to their patience and the guidance of those elders a whole lot more than my preaching. Now, I am one of them, and the good ones are pretty much gone, so they got what they got with us, and hopefully we'll live up to a degree at least to the standard that was left for us. But elders have to make sure that they don't fall into certain kind of problems because they're out there. There are problems that are specific to that office. 2 Timothy 2 and verse 26. Paul there is discussing those who need to recover themselves. We preach the gospel to help people recover themselves from the snares of the devil. My assumption tonight, given the size crowd we have here, that some of y'all have a foot in some of these snares. Some of y'all have some of these problems going on. That's why we're going to preach on them. And the ones of us that don't will. There's only two kinds of people in this room right now. There are those that are having serious problems, and there are those who are about to. That's life. It runs through cycles, doesn't it? You'll go along for a while and everything's hunky-dory, it's all good, and then all of a sudden it goes sideways. And how we react to those problems, by and large, is going to define how we get through this life, whether we're saved or not. 2 Corinthians 2 and verse 11, he just read. We should not be ignorant of his devices. So what I'm going to try to do today, as we are with the entire session, is to look at the Word of God, that lamp into our path, that light into our way. We're going to look to God's Word and see what kind of problems, what kind of traps are there that we got to watch out for. And just for Terrence Dendy Brownlow Dendy, I have alliterated these points. I told him I can't find any alliteration in the Bible, but I find them on preachers' outlines, but I did this in honor of Terrence. So here comes 7 snares of the devil. In fact, I should say 7 snares of Satan. There you go, alliteration. All starting with the letter M, but they're all pertinent problems that we need to preach on. How's that? I'm tired of alliteration. All right, the first one. Listen, as Americans, we have a lot of folks who fall into the money trap. We get too worked up and too concerned about money. And I am as infected as you are. It's like a virus in our country. It's out there. And it's a problem because we're almost taught that if you're not, chasing down every quarter you can get, something's wrong with you. Now, there's nothing wrong with money itself, but you can have a problem with money, and there are people who do. They get their priorities messed up. They'll skip services in a heartbeat. I had to work. No, you didn't. You chose to work. And that goes across the board. We make decisions. Who is responsible for Michael Light's schedule? Any of y'all or me? Me. So if I choose something, it's a choice I make. The Bible speaks to this topic quite a bit. 1 Timothy 6 and verse 9. But godliness with contentment is great gain. He speaks earlier there by saying that those who seek after riches pierce themselves through with many sorrows. This next phrase you're going to disagree with, but hear me now, believe me later. All of us in this room are rich. We have so much stuff, and we've always been conditioned to think, oh, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. Yes, we are. Compare what we have. Remember a few years ago they had a study of people who were on Medicaid, actual poverty in America. 2 cell phones, 2 TVs, so many square feet, air conditioning, transportation. We got a lot of stuff. I ain't rich. No, me either. So I walk into my air-conditioned house, plop down on my leather couch. I push a button to raise my feet. I push another button, and there's a TV the size of that back wall. That's one of 4 in my house. Just me and my wife now. Those kids will leave eventually, by the way. But TVs, remote controls, icebox, refrigerator tank. I can go up there, I can put my glass there, and I can get ice, I can get crushed ice, or I can get cold water. Oh, we got it tough. Now, this is no joke. This is bad. About a month ago, I go to McDonald's to get my wife Dr. Pepper because she likes Dr. Pepper. And I'm in that line, and I had to sit there at least 10 or 12 seconds before that voice came on and said, can I help you? I said, well, yeah, you could have helped me 10 seconds ago. I had to sit there 10 seconds. What's going on? This place is falling apart. That COVID's messing everything up. Brethren, we call these first world problems. My remote control. Do y'all remember before we had remote controls? We had 3 channels on the TV. And Daddy say, boy, go change that channel. My daddy say, go change that channel. And he said, hey, cowboy game's on, kind of snowing. Go out there and turn the antenna. Anybody else remember that? Had to turn it toward Fort Dallas from where I lived over by Tyler, to get that thing to come in. And I'm complaining because of my remote control. You ever done this? You ever go to the pantry? Which, by the way, mine's got 3 doors. You open this thing, swings out with 2 sides, and it's got a whole cabinet in there, and it's full of food. And I holler at my wife, hey, honey, you want to go get pizza? We ain't got nothing to eat. We have so much, we become numb to it. This text says, godliness with contentment. Are we content, brethren, with what we got? I've got another point along that line later. We won't belabor that one. I want to shift gears a little bit about covetousness, though. Ephesians 5, verse 3, let not covetousness be named among you. Colossians 3 and verse 5, covetousness, which is idolatry. Matthew 6:24, no man can serve 2 masters. He either hold the one and hate the other, despise the one and love the other. I reverse that phrase. But you cannot serve both God and mammon. You cannot be money conscious all the time. Luke 12, verse 15, the Lord tells us, take heed. Beware of covetousness, for a man's life it consists of more than just the things he possesses. So I remember the church one time. I worked for this guy when I was younger. He was going to have me throw a lawnmower away. Had this old beat up old push lawnmower. But before I threw it, he said, hold on. He got a ball-peen hammer, 3-pound ball-peen hammer. And he broke all the small pieces, the carburetor and the little gas can. He wanted to make sure that nobody could fish that out of the dumpster and use it. Brother, is that not covetousness? If some old local area guy could go out there and pull that we're throwing it away. It's trash to my man. We're going to throw it in the dumpster. But it bothered him, the idea that somebody could fish it out of the trash can and fix the carburetor, change the plugs out, maybe clean out the intake, and either sell it for 10 or 15 bucks or use it for a couple of years. What's wrong with us? I'm telling you, that kind of mindset, it'll send you to hell. In business, do you always have to have the better end of the deal? I know some people, it irritates them. They're like, if you have to always feel like you got to the other fella, I'm telling you, you're going to hell. That's wrong, brethren. Why can't the other guy win? Several years ago, we sold a bunch of goats. And Dawson was pretty, junior high age. There's a bunch of them, 150, 200 head. Private treated to a guy at the place. And I made the guy a pretty fair offer, and he took them, and Johnson couldn't understand. He said, Daddy, he said, we could have got a lot more money than that if we took them to the sale barn. Because I'm Daddy, I'm thinking, yeah, my gas lane, my half day down there and back, my commission being paid, there's a little bit more to it than what, little guy sees. But I told him, I said, Dawson, listen, it's okay for the other guy to get the better deal. Why do you have to get it for less than what everybody else has to pay for it? Why should you, well, I'm special, say. But that's covetousness, isn't it? We got to be careful on that. And I know there are people that it bothers them. And then I'm in an industry where folks come up, they bellyache. Hey, y'all just trying to cheat somebody. I take that personally, by the way. When somebody accuses you, and that happens to carpenters, it happens to doctors, pretty much every profession. But as far as, but when people say that, they're covetous, but you're the problem. Wait a minute, you're accusing me of sin here in business practices. But now it shouldn't be true. When somebody says, I can't do business with so-and-so, he's just a tightwad. Let that never be said about me and you. I'm not saying be a poor steward, but you know what? God blesses us more than we deserve, doesn't he? Over my life, I've had people do things for me that were just amazingly generous. Why can't we return the favor on that? I made that same point about those goats down at Pecos this past summer. And there was a guy in the crowd, he was in the crowd. Later on, Jackson was selling out of his stuff, getting ready to come to school. And we had a really good billy goat, a young goat. The guy had given $1,000 for it. He sold it to me for $500. And this is a good buck. He's worth $1,000, $1,200 easy. Remember the church down there was going to buy everything, lock, stock, and barrel. Didn't need the buck, but he would take him. He said, I got a guy, I think he'll take it. He said, what do you want for that buck? I said, you know what, he's probably worth $1,200. I'll take $400. I just don't want to see the sucker go to the sale barn. He's a good buck. The guy bought that buck, and next time I saw that man, he actually called me and said, I want to tell you something. The guy who bought that buck was there at camp that day you preached that sermon. And he told me, I'll tell you one thing, that man went by what he said about leaving the other guy a better deal. I don't say that to brag on me, I don't care about that. I've had many people do things like that for me before too. But why not do that? Why doesn't it matter? Why can't somebody else get a good deal? Sometimes there's other circumstances there besides the money. We shouldn't always be about the money. The money trap, though, is a problem for some people. They just can't get around it. They say when they talked to Rockefeller once, back in his day, John D. Rockefeller, who was the richest man in the world, him and Carnegie went back and forth on that, but at this time he was the richest man in the world. And they asked him, they said, if you were in a river that was 100 feet deep and you had all the money in the world, but you saw one silver dollar at the bottom of that river, what would you do? He said, I'd jump in and go get it. That's a problem, brethren. We should be satisfied with what we have. And it's hard. If you sit around the house at night and can't even sleep because I just don't know about, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money. You know what I'd be more worried about? Like that rich fool in Luke chapter 12. How much life he got left. That guy was blessed by God. He tore down his barns. He built bigger barns. And he said to himself, soul, take thine ease. Thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Eat, drink, be merry. Then God speaks and says, thou fool, this night you're going to die. Then who shall these things be? Your soul be required of thee. Then who shall these things be? Brethren, keep those things straight in your mind. And I know that there are real financial issues. I got kids in college. You can't have enough money when the kids are going to college. Sorry, Jack. I mean, they're expensive, okay? But don't let that circumstance bend your mind and change us to where it becomes a problem for you and we become tight. The next one is the majority trap. Worry about what everybody else thinks. I won't spend very much time on this because I made a whole point about this morning. But in Exodus 23, verse 2, thou shalt not follow a majority to do evil. The same verses, just to get them on the tape. Matthew 7, 13 through 14. Matthew 5, 14 through 16. Matthew 5, 14 through 16. 13 through 16. You are the salt of the earth. That means you can't be like everybody else. You are the light of the world. You're supposed to be different. Your presence is different. In the Philippian letter, chapter 2 and verse 15, that you be harmless as the sons of God, and that you might shine as a light in the dark world. We'll have more to say before this week's over about the circumstances in which we find ourselves. But brethren, I know there are serious issues. I know there are some moral problems. I know this is a dark world. And you know what we should be doing? You ought to bow your knees and bow your head and thank God to count me and you worthy to live in such times as this, to make a difference. The time when the world needs good men and needs good women to stand up and say what's true and to live what's true. Sometimes people can't hear what we're saying because they see what we're doing. Let's make sure that's never true of us. Very few of us tolerate hypocrites very well, do we? I don't like them. I'd much rather just be around an open sinner who knows what he is. You know, you can talk to somebody who's honest, but hypocrisy is almost a kind of lie, isn't it? Trying to hide what's actually the truth. Watch out for the majority. 1 Peter chapter 2 talks to us about being a peculiar people, a holy priesthood. When you look at yourself in the mirror, do you see a holy person? You've got to. Be thou holy as I am holy. God can't tolerate or fellowship sin. There's not going to be any sinners in heaven, not one. We've got to be holy. How do I become holy? I've got to have the blood of Christ wash away all my sins. I can't be worried so much about what everybody else thinks. I've got to become what he says I've got to be a Christian, and I have to live that peculiar, different kind of life, that focused life, that 1 John 1 verse 7, that walking in the light life, that continually washed by Christ life, that continual repentance and praying life, that when we sin, when we mess up, we fess up, we pray to God, ask forgiveness, and he grants it. I've never said that I made it through a whole day without sin. I don't know that I ever have. I've heard people say that. I'm not sure that thinking that's not a sin. I don't know. But I know whenever I do sin, I need to close out every day with a prayer. Father, forgive me for this, this, and this that I might have done. By the way, if you know you did it, you can pray that when you do it. And if it's not a sin of commission, Father, forgive me for not doing better and not doing more in the situation that I could have done. That scares me more than the other one. Sometimes it's not so much the person that we are that should scare us. It's the kind of person we should be but fail to be. That's the measuring stick. That should be what drives us as we try to do better. I don't want you walking around with your head down. I'm going to have at least 2 more sermons that are going to be, I hope, very much encouraging. That I want us to see ourselves as God's people and of great value to God. But I also need to be very honest and be self-aware and see myself as I am and address the issues as they are. It's easy for me to tell you what to do. I can do this all day long. Anybody here who wants to lose some weight, I can help you lose 20 pounds in just a matter of a few weeks, probably. I can tell you how much to eat. I can tell you how to work out. I can whip you into shape quickly. Of course, in the back of your mind right now, you should be saying, well, then why is that what it is? Well, I can tell you how. It's very easy to fix the other guy. It's a little bit harder to fix ourselves. I can see your flaws. I can tell you how to be a much better Christian. I don't always see my flaws. So I've got to become somewhat introspective. Paul would say, let a man examine himself as to whether he be in the faith. It's more comfortable to look at you. It's more comfortable to deal with your problems. But it's more needful for me to deal with my own and to see myself as I am. We got to be sure that we don't fall into this majority trap of being like everybody else. Then there's a minute trap. Man, this is one I think we need. Time. If you're not careful, you can become so overscheduled. I preach on this a lot because I think it's one of the problems I have. You know, it's hard to say no. You just keep doing stuff and you just add something else on. Brother Horace, the fellow we were talking about a minute ago, one of our elders, he used to tell me, I'd come in from one of these weeks, I'd have 2 or 3 trips in 1 week. He'd say, you know, Michael, if you'd break that candle in half, you could burn 4 ends instead of 2 at one time. But the minute trap, Benjamin Franklin said, don't waste time. It's the stuff that life is made of. And the Bible warns us a lot about wasting our time, wasting our opportunities. Colossians 4 and verse 5, walk with wisdom, redeeming the time. I see a lot of kids out there. I'm going to tell you right now, as in my mind, a young father stands before you. My kids went from that size to grown and gone and married in about 6 months, it seems like. It went by quick. I mean, J.C. Rollo was married to a grandma, y'all. I knew B.J. when she was still she was still tall, but she was just a high school girl. Years ago, you weren't but 18 or 19 we met. It's a long time ago now. I knew Tommy when he had black hair. Carol stayed the same, but Tommy got old. I knew Daryl's daddy, Dink's granddaddy, a long time ago. To me, it's just a couple of months ago. Time goes by quickly. You need to enjoy those babies. You're always going to have a meeting to run off to. You're always going to have somebody else to call back. Take time and enjoy those little guys because they won't be little very long. And you're going to look back and you're going to miss it. You'll be like me, that song comes on, you're going to miss this or don't blink, and I'm, crying my eyes out like a girl because mine have grown up and left. It happens. Now, the good news is they have those grandbabies, and they're way better than your kids were. That's true, by the way. People don't think it is. You know why grandparents and grandkids get along so good? They got a common enemy. Y'all figure that one out, you parents. But, we all say, people told me that, boy, slow down and enjoy it. Y'all who are my age now or older, y'all recall when you had little guys, people say, oh, slow down and enjoy them. It goes by too fast. Were they telling the truth, Terrence? It goes back way too fast. I remember being T-ball when they're 4 years old, little bitty stuff. And it's gone. It ain't coming back again. Same thing with your marriage. How many people, when the kids are growing up, the husband and wife, they lose each other. They're in the same house, but he's running to work, she's doing this, keeping the schedule, and they wake up at 50 and they're laying beside a stranger. It happens all the time. Who is responsible for managing your marital time, your husband and wife time, your family time? We are. The world doesn't care about overbooking you. Your boss just wants to get more out of you. And by the way, that's fine. That's business. That's natural. But you set the limits of what's allowable there. I've known preachers lose their families. They're off holding a meeting here. They're off doing mission work there. They're over here. And at the same time, their family's falling apart. You owe your family first and the church second in that regard. You took a vow to that lady that stands there beside you, and you had those children. And Ephesians 6 and verse 1 through 4 doesn't stutter. Fathers, raise up your children in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. That's priority number one. We don't sacrifice that. There'll be time for this other stuff later. I got an email from John Friday. He was just beside him. He said, Michael, I'm so sorry. He said, I saw I was off that Sunday. We're on vacation. It tore him up. I said, John, listen, you go enjoy those little monkeys you got there. I said, we're young enough. We got 20 years to bug each other at lectureships and meetings, and we'll have old man time later. Take that family time now. And I'm not saying all y'all should just take off tomorrow, but I am saying when you go on vacation, I'll tell you this. When you go on vacation, be on vacation. Some people can't let that cell phone go. Zig Ziglar has a whole situation he deals with on this. He said most people are never where they're at. They're at work and they want to be on vacation. They're at vacation, will be back at work. They're never where they are. Be where you are. Control your time. Don't fall into that minute trap. Hebrews 3, 13 through 15. Exhort each other while it is today. That's the Holy Spirit telling us, y'all encourage each other. That's what I'm trying to do right now. See, these are things that I would say that on the list of sins, these are probably what you consider small ones. I have trapped some big old gnarly looking wolves and coyotes in a little bitty snare trap. These are the kind of devil gets you with. Some painted woman comes up to you, you're like, get out of here, husband. I ain't messing with you. That ain't going to bother me. But stay a couple more hours today. Stay a few more hours this week. Let's go do this on business. And sometimes we think we're being a good employee. I know a lot of daddies who feel that pull. You want to give your kids the good stuff. The nice clothes, the nice cars, the nice house, the nice. You know what they need? They need daddy on the floor running around playing with them. If it's a single wide trailer house, who cares? They're not going to remember that. Besides that, you go back over your own life. Most of us at some point in time, especially us that are over, say, 40, we got things pretty good now. Everybody was poor in the 70s when we were youngins, right? Nobody had nothing. But they were good times, weren't they? When you think back about the stuff we did. We did stuff together because we didn't have no money to go out and do anything. I heard a man just telling Dinkle over here. Brother Hounshaw had all these stories. He was telling one time about how poor they were in the late 30s, early 40s. He said, man, we were so poor. He said, Mama, get us kids around the table. She'd set the table. And then she'd get out the recipe book and read us recipes. That's how we got by. He said, one year my little brother had an ear infection, so he almost starved to death. He couldn't hear, So, so it's not that bad. But the point is they need a daddy. They need their mama. The stuff we don't eat anyway. Is anybody here like me? Do any of y'all go to Goodwill 2 or 3 times a year just taking bag after bag after bag of clothes and just getting rid of them? I've got every kind of pink softball shirt. I had girls first, I got T-shirts and stuff, just piles of it. You have clothes. There are some people who have storage buildings at their house that are full. There are some folks that will rent storage facilities in town to store stuff. Here's a hint, guys. An unused item is a useless item. Let it go. Any of y'all still got grandpa's clothes in a box somewhere in a storage unit you're paying for? Why? You going to wear them? No. We collect stuff. How about you make memories? And that stuff, it ain't going to last anyway. That tore Solomon up, and never Solomon figured out. What really tore him up is all the stuff he got. He figured out, hey, wait a minute. Either it's going to wear out or I am. I'm going to die, and my wife, one of them, is going to remarry, and that yardbird she married will get all my stuff. Or worse yet, one of my sorry boys is going to inherit it. He's going to go blow it. By the way, why does that bother a man? You ain't going to know anyway. You either in paradise or Tartarus anyway. Who cares who got the house? It ain't going to matter to you. Sometimes we worry about the dumbest stuff. You know why? Because we're pretty dumb. me included. Sometimes we just don't think things out very well. We make decisions based on human thinking instead of on spiritual thinking. 2 Corinthians 6 and verse 2, Felix, here's the gospel preached by Paul. How many people, very few, so far as world history goes, had the privilege of their personal Bible study teacher being the Apostle Paul? Felix heard him quite a few times. And finally, Paul tells him, today is the acceptable time. Now is the appropriate time. I wonder how many people are going to wind up in hell one of these days who sat on a pew week after week, or at least several times in their lifetime, and they heard the gospel preached, and they knew, K-N-E-W, knew to their core that what they were hearing was the truth. And one of these days I'm going to become a Christian. But they never did. That's got to be one of the saddest existences. There's only one I can think of worse in hell. And that's someone who was a Christian, but quit before the race was over. Somebody who had grasped salvation, but then lost it before the end. Let's not get caught up in this minute trip where we're so consumed. Well, and there are people who live their lives this way. You know, when you're a little kid, you want to be big. There was a time I had a cousin who was 16. I thought 16 was the coolest age. That's like 10, you know. Wow, it's huge. And you get to drive. So you just can't wait till you're 16 to get that driver's license. Then you can't wait to get out of high school and go to college. Then you can't wait to get out of college and get married. Then you can't wait to have kids. Then you can't wait till the kids leave. Then you can't wait till you get to retire. And then you find yourself in that rocking chair and you've lived your whole life and you never, ever enjoyed the section of life you were in. It's always what comes next, more so than what's here in front of us. That's a foolish way to live. I've known folks that work and work and work and save and save and save and have a massive heart attack and die before they retire. They're always going to retire and travel. And they travel from the place they dropped dead to the graveyard, and that's it. My daddy was kind of that way. He worked all the way to, he was 63 years old and fell over at work and died. Died young. I'm not blaming him for that, but I'm just saying, well, he was a Christian, so it's not a problem there. But I'm just saying, for those who aren't ready, it's a problem. You know, you have, people worry about death sometimes. And they worry about what's going to be like. I had a buddy one time, we went to Georgetown to a buck out. We were riding some bulls up there. Well, okay, we're getting on some bulls up there. But he had never ridden before, so we'd go up there, and he wants to ride a bull. And the whole way there, he's nervous, you know. He's just going on, how do you get off the bull? How do you get off the bull? How do you get off the bull? And I finally said, Daniel, it wasn't Daniel Horn, by the way, but I said, Daniel, that'd be funny. I'd pay for that. I'd buy your entry. And he might stick him, I don't know. But I said, Daniel, quit worrying about getting off the bull. You got to worry about holding on. The getting off part takes care of itself. That's how dying is. Well, what's it going to be? It doesn't matter. You're not going to know. You're going to be here. You're going to be gone. You're going to know where you ended up. But we worry about that. It takes care of itself. You are going to die. I am going to die. Unless Christ comes back, first, we're going out one way or the other. You've seen this happen. Father Time, death, expiration dates were 100% when it comes to human beings. We need to make sure we're ready before we pass. The mouth trap, that's my next one. Whew, our tongue can get us in trouble. The wicked is snared by his words, Proverbs 12, verse 13. Snared by the words of your mouth, Proverbs 6 and verse 2. Snared by a multitude of words, Proverbs 10 and verse 19. Foolish men who hold their peace are counted wise. Men of many words are wicked. James 1 verse 19. My daddy paraphrased this verse. He always said, boy, God put two fences around your tongue. Said you got one of ivory and one of flesh. And he also gave you 2 eyes and 2 ears. That means you should look and listen twice as much as you talk. And as you can tell, I didn't listen to my daddy sometimes on these things. But this passage here says the same thing. God says the same thing. Be swift to hear, swift to listen, and slow to speak. You ever popped off and got yourself in trouble? I used to get in fist fights a bunch when I was a little guy. Man, you can say the wrong thing, the wrong guy, in the wrong mood, and you already got it, you're going now. It's gone, right? It's happening. You ever got to fight with your wife? I don't mean that kind. But you ever just said something kind of in a snarky way? It's not very wise, by the way. Husbands, or wives, but nonetheless. Maybe you said something, you didn't really think it through before you said it. But they thought it through for you real quick. You brought it back on you, right? It happens. You kiddos, here's an example. Go home tonight, get the toothpaste out, take the lid off, and squeeze the whole tube out on the countertop. And then take your finger and put it back in that tube. Can you do that, Terrence? It won't work. Many of us, marriage-wise, with our kids, at work, in general, think before you speak. What am I saying? Is it true? Is it helpful? What could the possible responses be to what I'm going to say? A lot of times we pop off and say things without thinking. He says here, a Christian should be swift to hear, slow to speak. And as a Christian, here's another thing. You and I, people mess with this. I know that. And we get tired. When you're tired and irritable, that's when you're liable to say something you shouldn't say. Or say something that's not necessarily bad, but in the wrong way. Tone of voice is not good. I used to get whippings all the time when I was given by my mama. She'd say, son, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. And she'd tear me up, because attitude, was a problem. She thought it was. That was her side of the story. But anyway, I could get in trouble saying yes, ma'am. Because I'd say, yes, ma'am, whop, come here. The mouth trap. Matthew 12, Christ puts it this way. By your words you shall be justified, and by your words you shall be condemned. Every idle word that a man shall speak, you shall give an account of in the day of judgment. I'll go further than that. Every word you and I speak in the presence of non-Christians, their salvation may hang on what you and I say. We cannot give them an excuse not to listen to the gospel. If I can't say to Morgan what I'm about to pop off and say to Morgan, and then when that conversation finishes, ask him for a Bible study, don't say it. Right? I can't burn the bridge to the place I'm trying to get them. You've always got to keep that in mind. Luke 19, verse 10, our goal is to seek and save those who are lost. So everything I do, everything I say, everything I project has to go through that filter. Every time. Not in a hypocritical way. I may be angry when I say something to Morgan that he might need to hear. But I need to make sure how I say it is appropriate and does not build a barrier between future contact with him. Then there's the me trap. We are seeing this thing in spades. Me. It's all about me. My pronouns are, I don't give a rip what you think your pronouns are. If you're a dude, you're a him, his, he. If you're a girl, you're a she, her. What else is I missed that one out? But anyway, the opposite, the girl side, okay? Putting on a skirt doesn't make a dude a girl. And putting on a pair of, I don't know, whatever clothes they be putting on, it doesn't make a girl a guy. We have a messed up world. What's that guy's name that swims for, is it Penn State? Has that one up there? I forget his real name. And we got that other one that's supposed to be the first woman admiral of whatever it is that, what's his name? Levine guy? Robert Levine or whatever his name is. That's an ugly dude to start with. He got long hair. When he made that announcement, this is the first one, I wish somebody just pulled his skirt out. Yeah, that's a woman. Not. Brethren, that's how dumb this world has become. But see, but that is the ultimate, though, in me. You have to change your language. You have to lie. You have to, number one, put your soul at risk. You've got to deny the gospel, deny God, deny nature, deny truth, and then verbally affirm a lie because I said you have to. No. Where has our backbone gone? Just step away from the Bible, just go philosophically. If truth is whatever I think it is, why can't I think you're an idiot for saying you're a girl when you're a dude? I can. Those are equal concepts. If every person is truly a God to themselves, then there's no such thing as a right and wrong position. Amen? That would be the problem. That would follow. Therefore, I don't have to be kind or gentle or nice or considerate to you at all. I can despise you and your kind. I could. And be consistent with that philosophy. Parents, you better focus on raising your children properly. I'm reading a great book right now. It's called The Parasitic Mind. And he parallels how certain parasites get into certain animals in particular, and they cause mental issues with the animal. There are philosophies that are that way. When you take a little monkey kid and you give them everything they want all the time, you just give in and give in and give in and give in. You are not teaching that child empathy. When everything's about them. I want this. Okay, here, yeah, you can have it. Yeah, you can have it. You create someone. That's how a narcissist is created. By definition, a narcissist is someone who the whole world's about them. There is a fine line between narcissism and psychopathy. being a psychopath. A psychopath has zero emotional connection or sympathy or empathy for anyone else. They can tie you down and cut you up a piece at a time and feel nothing. And that starts with you giving Junior everything he wants. We have to instill others, caring for others, putting others first, learning to hear the word no. Have you ever seen such a generation? We talk about snowflakes. Don't you young folks get offended. It ain't just y'all. And it's not all of y'all. There are lots of old people. They don't want to hear it. That they're so fragile. Oh, I don't want to talk about that. Hey, who cares? It's the truth. You got to talk about it. The world does not revolve around you. Me. No, the Bible doesn't teach us that. I saw an acronym one time in a building. It said JOY, J-O-Y. Jesus, others, yourself. Where has that gone? We talked about the passage this morning. I threw it out there dealing with we may have to stand against our own families. But that Matthew 10:34 and following passage, take up your cross and follow me. Let a man deny himself. Let me say it again. Deny yourself. The word disciple has within it the word discipline. I have got to put Michael Light's desires way over here and put God first. My obligations to God, my obligations to you, my obligations to family, my obligations to those who are lost, my obligations to encourage those who are saved. We'll get around to me. Somebody says, well, then when do I come first? Well, you know what? That's on your list. Your list is put me first. And put yourself last. See how it works? So if everybody's doing it that way, we're all putting Jesus first, then each other next, then ourselves. We're all being loved on by somebody, and we're loving on somebody else. But when you see the world about, well, I'm just not getting this, I'm not being fulfilled, I'm not getting much out of this, what are you giving to it? How often have you put someone else before you? The me trap, 1 John 2 and verse 4. Love not the world, nor the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes. What's the next one? The pride of life. Well, we get so stuck on that sometimes. But this is me. I'm special. I deserve special treatments. No, you don't. We don't deserve the treatment we've got. If somebody asks you how you're doing, you should say better than I deserve. That's true. If I died on this trip and never got back home, I've been blessed with a much better life than I deserve. And that's the truth. If I get 25 more years, then I assume I'll get more blessings going down the road. We need to be content with what we have had in that regard. Proverbs 16:19, Psalms 10 and verse 2. I want to go to the misery trap. I love this one. This is people who just, oh, poor me. It's just terrible. I hate that commercial. They got that plate with the fake smile, but they're sitting there looking like this. I'm taking all these drugs, I'll fake it, but I'm just not doing too good. I got to have this pill, that pill, the other pill. Now, you're the pill in that situation. When do you get the idea that life's about you? And by the way, when you drug yourself like that, you're not fixing the problem. You're just numbing. You're just numbing what's going on. Back in the old days, why did old timers go out and get drunk on Friday night? Because they had all these problems. They're going to drink their troubles away. Did that work? Yes or no? No. You still had the problem. You still had the marital issue. You still had the financial issue. You still had the health issue. But now you've also got a drinking problem. Same thing. If it's a problem, again, back to problems, there are two kinds of problems you can have. There are problems that you have that you can fix, and there are problems you have that you cannot fix. Fix the ones you can fix, and forget the other ones. You can't control them anyway. Learn to deal with it. It's called life. Things don't always go the way we think they should go. By the way, we're so finite and understanding, you don't have a clue how it's supposed to go anyway. Garth Brooks years ago had a song entitled Unanswered Prayers. And the whole thing behind that was, I thank God now that he knew what he was doing, because I didn't when I was praying for some of the stuff I was praying for. You ever done that? Probably. You really, really, really wanted something. You're praying about it, and then you don't get it. And then later you see the guy that didn't get it. I'm glad I didn't get that thing. That's a problem over there. That's how life is. Brethren, life gives the test first. The lesson comes later. And we live what we learn on those kinds of scenarios. We grow through those things. In Genesis chapter 3, the devil was able, now watch this, how this works. The devil was able to take Eve, a woman, the only one, who was literally married to the greatest man, the perfect man, the only one that ever existed. God deals in perfection, right? She had to be the prettiest woman ever walked. He had to be the best looking guy that ever walked. They had all the mental acuity that the human race would have. They had all the gifts, all the genetic material. They were both perfection as far as human beings go. They're living in paradise. There are no grass burrs, y'all. And there was no drought. Man, out back home, our catfish had ticks this year. It's so dry. I mean, it's just, but it was, they literally were living in paradise. And he convinced her that was miserable in paradise. Oh, you know, as soon as you eat that fruit, you're going to be like God. And right now, you can't eat all these trees, and God's just not being fair, and it's just bad. And she got to feel sorry for herself. Wow, this is just terrible. All these trees, the way he started that conversation, did God not say you can have all these trees to eat of? See how he worded it? God says you can eat of all of them except that one. He makes it sound like almost what she did is just heavily restrictive. God's not being fair to you. That's how God is. Ponder this thought. There's not one good thing in this life that God forbids us from enjoying. All of the good things are God's. James 1:17-25, every good gift and every perfect gift comes down from the Father of lights, in whom is no shadow of turning or variation. All the good stuff's on God's side. Is John 10 and verse 10 true or not? When Christ said, I came to give you the abundant life, is that true or false? That's true. You cannot have a better existence than the life of a Christian, period. You can't do it. And yet some people are just miserable. We start talking, well, I don't have this, and I don't have that. I really don't want to do this. It didn't work out. I didn't get to do that. I couldn't do the other. We're masters sometimes in dealing with things that did not happen. I've got to live my life as it is unfolding, not as I wish it would. Now let that sink in. There are people who are miserable who shouldn't be. Married people who found love, who found a companion, who have children, they've got everything that a person could want. There are plenty of people who can't get that, can't find that. They're without, and we grab about what we got. My wife this, my children that. How about you thank God for some woman putting up with you for 50 years? And the poor kids had no input. There they are, they're in your household. Thank God for them. Brother, what are we doing sometimes? Oh, it's just horrible. Oh, it's just bad. Oh, one of my 3 cars isn't cranking. My boat is missing when I go out and fish. It's just not quite right. I got one rifle that's not sight. Whatever. We just cry baby about stuff that most people could only dream about having. My game, Xbox or whatever, is loading too slow or whatever. That's all I know about that, by the way. I know that I got one in my house. I know it's not in somebody's apartment over here in College Station. I know that. That was a mutual decision. Me and Mama made it for him. But anyway, misery trap. 1 Kings 19. It's not just Eve. Here's another one. How about Achan? You know about Achan? Why did he need money? You know, God says, take Jericho and everything there's mine. The gold, the animals, the everything. That one is mine. It's the first conquest, the firstlings of the flock, if you will. You can have the rest of them. This one's for me. He steals the gold and silver and the clothing. All right, they just spent 40 years in the wilderness wearing clothes that did not wear out. What's he need clothes for, y'all? He doesn't. What did he need gold and silver for? God is giving them houses you did not build, vineyards you did not plant, cities you did not build. The crops, even the conquest, he had them conquer the land sequentially as the grains and the fruit ripened where they went from place to place to place. They weren't buying the land, God's giving it to them. You know what that shows you? A lack of faith. You show me somebody who's really super money conscious, I'll show you somebody who doesn't trust God. One of the best phrases I ever heard was an old Western show. The guy said, this ain't the last $100 bill I'm ever going to have. We've had that conversation before over the years. You do the right thing and you put the money where it needs to go, God will trust you enough to give you some more. If you're tight-fisted, why would he give you anything? Ponder that. If every dollar you make goes to the bank somewhere and is never used for any good for the kingdom or anybody else, then you don't need any more. Because you ain't using what you got. We've become a one-talent man who's burying the money in the ground, right? Miserable people. 1 Kings 19, same thing with, these are good men now. I bring this up because I can do this. Have you ever sat around feeling sorry for yourself? Ever put your lip out? I remember high school, man. Sometimes my parents didn't want me to have any fun. Got to be home by this date. Can't go out with that girl. Can't go do this. Can't go do that. Well, did they know a little bit more about the situation than I did? Yeah. 1 Kings 19. Elijah is fed up. God, he says, I got to go. You know, they're trying to kill me. Nobody's listening. It's time to take me home. Just come get me. And in essence, God says, quit your belly aching, quit your whining. I've got 7,000 people in that city alone who haven't bowed the knee. I've got 2 kings, one in Syria and one in Israel. I need you to go install, and you have to go pick out Elisha, get him trained up to take your job. Then I'll take you home. You're not old and done yet. We're getting toward the end. But Elisha, you don't tell me when you're finished. I'll tell you when you're finished. I got 3 more things for you to go do. The same way with us. Don't feel sorry for yourself. I don't know if there's anybody in the Old Testament who I think better of than Elisha. Man, when he stood there, Elijah, when he stood there at Mount Carmel, whoo, he's a hoss. 400 men died. He told that king Ahab off, outran his chariot back to the house in a thunderstorm. He's a man now. But here, he's a weary man. He's an almost broken man. He's a moping in his own circumstance man. And he almost gives it up. And God has to figuratively slap him back to, boy, what are you doing? I got people watching you. I got kings, and I got another prophet. You can't bow down now. You've got to do your duty. Saw an old Western show I like one time about the Alamo. David Crockett sitting there talking to Jim Bowie character. And they just sent a messenger over the walls, and he took off. And that David Crockett character says, gives a man pause, doesn't it? He said, if it was just me, just old David Crockett from Tennessee, he said, I'd probably just slip over that wall and catch a horse and ride north myself. But that other fella, Davy Crockett, folks are watching him. And brethren, folks ought to be able to watch you. They'll expect me and you to stand our post and do our job. You stand there in that gap until your race is run. And Elijah does finish that race, and I'm very proud that he does with God's encouragement. I can do the same thing Jeremiah, the weeping, he cried sometime. They're not listening, they're not listening, they're not listening. And God had to remind him, preachers, that it's not your job to make them listen. It's your job to give them the message to be heard. Listening's on their part. Our job is to preach it. Remember Isaiah said, the word of God did not come back to him void. It always accomplishes what God sent it to accomplish. Final point, the mediocrity trap. Here's another bad one. 1 Peter 3 and verse 15, be ready always, give an answer. Ecclesiastes 9 verse 10, whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your might. Colossians 3 and verse 23, whatever you do, do heartily as unto the Lord. Don't you halfway do anything. Give God your best. Malachi 6 and verse 1. No, 1 and verse 6. Y'all have robbed, will a man rob God? They said, how have we robbed you? In sacrifices. They did not give him the best. He asked the question, a son honors his father and a servant his master. If I be your father, where is my honor? If I be your master, where is my fear? May we always give God what he deserves when it comes to our effort. Don't you dare be mediocre. Listen, in America right now, especially since COVID-19, mediocre gets you a job. Mediocre probably gets you a pay raise. If you're a mediocre worker and you show up every day, you will have a job somewhere. But as a Christian, you'll be in sin living that way. You give your best, whether it's at work, whether it's at church, whether it's with your kids, whether it's with your spouse, when it becomes your personal Bible study, you're trying to grow yourself spiritually. Put the proper effort. You don't have to be great. I'm going to quote Tommy Moore, the great Tommy Moore. I met him, and he really was a young man when I first met him too. I don't know if he remembers ever saying this, but it stuck with me. Some sermon he preached, he said, it does not take much of a man to be a Christian, but it takes all that he has. And that's true. That 1-talent man was just as valuable before God as that 5-talent man. His problem was he did not use that 1 talent. Matthew 25, I'm not going to go through them, but those 3 parables, the virgins, the talents, and the sheep and the goats, they were all lost for neglecting to do what they should have done for God. That's 7 quick things, problems that I think are real. I don't think probably this crowd struggles with transgenderism and alcohol abuse and drug abuse and what, maybe not, I don't know. Some of what we might call the more prominent sins. But these, listen, I feel the tug of these. Many of them, if not all of them, from time to time. Sometimes you don't want to give your best. Well, you got to. Because of whose we are and who we are in his service. If you're not a child of God, you become one by believing in Christ, repenting your past sins, confessing your faith in him, and being baptized. As I said this morning, I'll study with you for hours if you want to on that topic. That's just to give you the summary. But as a Christian, you better watch out for the snares. Don't get tripped up. Everything I mentioned this afternoon, you know. But I suspect some of us struggle with this. These are also probably private sins. If they be private in nature, then pray to God, ask forgiveness. If your wife knows you've been doing this mess, repent of it. Ask her forgiveness and pray with her about that, or vice versa. Or your kids. Tell them if you haven't been doing a good job as a father. They already know. If you're putting them off and ducking out on what you should be doing with them, they already know. Ask their forgiveness to become a better father, a better mother in these areas. If you've been feeling that little old covetousness rise up in you, that greed come up in you, you better reform your heart. Because that just gets worse and worse and worse with the practice of it. Friends, whatever your desires may be, if we can help you tonight, come forward. We'll pray with you and for you. If you need to repent, do so now. Together we stand as we